Hey guys, welcome back to another Christmas guide. I'm Khadroth. Today we're going to be going through the Lancer node for Christmas. This should be the third farming node, so let's jump right in. Also, just as a quick reminder, don't forget to check me out on Twitch Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so for this first comp, as you guys can see, this is actually a 6 CE comp. We got a lot of feedback on the Gilfest comp saying that, Cad, why didn't you include the 6 CE carding comp? I am not going to make a habit of including these types of comps, but this one out of all of them does have very good potential. It's up to you if you really have nothing better to do, but in my opinion, I'm going to go ahead and say you probably want to go with one of the other comps here. Let me explain what makes this comp so weird. As you guys can see, it's RNG cards for the first wave. We're dealing with 26k enemies on average here. This can be done due to the fact that the drop craft essence that each one of these sabers will have equipped is both a buster and quick buffing craft essence, and it also gives stars when they enter the field. So for this first turn, you have a crap ton of stars, and you should be able to make a lot of this work. So where's the problem then? So the problem's gonna lie in what happens when you get those waiver cards. I'm of the opinion at this point in time that basically if you don't get 3 of the Sabers cards, and they do need to be staggered for you to be able to kill different enemies on that front wave, you need to probably hold off on buffing and not do stuff. Just kind of card that one out and wait. Also remember, you are going to get the intuitions from both of these Sabers, which will provide additional stars here. So maybe it might not be a total waste if you don't get any Saber cards in the first wave, even though you'll have all those stars there from craft essences, but at least then on turn 2 you're going to have the intuition stars to kind of help bolster you. Again, this is a very RNG-esque comp. You are going to need at least 3 staggered Saber cards here to make it work. So just consider anytime you see basically 3 or more waiver cards, you don't really want to touch your buffs. So when would we want to use this comp? I'm going to say you're probably going to want to use this comp in 2 scenarios. 1, you have these sabers, but you don't have a Kscope. Or 2, you just really want to do 6 CE for the bonus. If you do it because of that latter reason, you have to be able to accept the fact that you're probably going to 4-turn at some point. If you're doing it for the former reason where you don't have a Kscope, you're probably already having to deal with this on other nodes. This is an option for you guys, but just understand it does have a high propensity to turn into a 4-turn comp. And that's why we've told you guys to be patient with the first wave in the first node. So how would we do this? We're going to go ahead and check immediately here for the cards. Let's say we have 3 staggered cards. You're going to want to use probably your strongest card, let's say a buster on the highest health enemy, hoping that it crits here, but maybe you end up with a quick card for one of the other sabers or an arts card or something like that, and you use that on the next one, and then you stagger them and you're going to wipe them all out. So the progression order is, let's say you get those cards. You're going to pop all of the first waivers buffs on your first Artoria or Mordred, whichever one you're using. You do have to have both for this comp. That's going to bring that character up to 50% charge. You're going to go ahead and plug suit, rotate that waiver out, and pop all of the next waivers buffs on the other one that didn't get buffed. That should bring both of those sabers up to 70% charge. And the good part here is they both have 30% charges in their kit. From there on out, you should be full of stars. You should have the cards to be able to card through that first wave and just go through that easy. From there, in wave 2, you're going to go ahead and pop whatever NP damage skills you need, be it Artoria or Mordred's buster up, be it Artoria's charisma to help you out. You may have popped the charisma in turn 1 as well. It just depends on how confident you are in killing. So then here on wave 2, you're going to pop those skills, clear the wave, and you should have a little bit of health remaining if you're using an NP1 Mordred. This entire chart is calculated with Mordred's damage, not Artoria's. Artoria should do more for you. But then the high difficulty here is that we're going to require NP3 Mordred or Artoria for the final wave. It has to be in P3. As you guys can see, there's going to be a little bit of health left over, and you're not going to have stars to help you out. So if you get shafted on the cards, you probably won't kill. That's why we want to make sure that you are secure here. So again, we're recommending a 10-10-10 Artoria in P3, or at least a 10x10 Mordred in P3 here. Okay, now we get into a more standardized comp. I'm way more comfortable suggesting this to you guys. Again, here you guys can see we are going to be requiring a NP3 Nito. This is only going to be 5 CE, unfortunately, like most of our comps. We will be using Waver and Merlin. The big bigger hurdle probably for most of you guys, as you guys have seen this kind of already be a requirement for a lot of the prior nodes, is you're gonna have the NP2 of Mordred or Artoria. One of the real concerns here is going to be out here on the max health remaining on turn 1. Good news is, and let's talk about this, if you're using Artoria, you can add in charisma here to help out. If you are not, then you might fail because all 3 had health remaining, but you didn't have to necessarily use anything on turn 1. You could have used the Merlin attack buff, but most of these numbers here are calculated again using Mordred, but even still, you should pretty cleanly kill on the final wave. So even if you were to back out, say, Merlin's attack buff, it might make the difference in you clean clearing, but it probably shouldn't make the difference in you being able to 3-turn here on the final wave. You should be okay even if you scuff turn 1 here and it turns into a 4-turn. The other thing I'd like to point out is I really don't recommend using Scotty for this, but you might be able to get away with it. Alternatively, you can, if you feel confident with it, start with Waver and add Waver in, and it will get a lot lower on these, but it won't turn any of these units into a 100% clear. So I don't really recommend that. Instead, where I think you're going to have to be dealing with this is you either need a higher MP level of Nitocris to help, or you need to rely on Death Proc. Well, the good news is these guards are skeletons, so they should be a little bit more susceptible to that. Unfortunately, again, if you end up with all 3 remaining, this could easily turn into a 4-turn on you. So let's talk our skill order here. For wave 1, like I said, let's just go ahead and assume we're going to clear. You're going to go ahead and charge Nitocris with her middle skill, bring that up to 100%. You're going to go ahead and use Merlin's first skill, his charisma, his 20% charge. That should bring the Mordred or Artoria you're using to 100%. If you have Artoria, go ahead and pop her charisma here. If you have Mordred, you don't have anything else to work with, but you could potentially use her intuition here if you so choose. I would tell you instead to wait and go ahead and use that on the second wave in her case, especially given that she will likely have to card out the guard dog. As we kill the first wave now, we've ended up in wave 2. Mordred is at full charge. Artoria is at full charge, depending on who you're using. You can go ahead and use Merlin's Buster buff here. You can plug suit Nitocris out for Waver. You can bring him in, but at this point, there's really not much you can do here. So go ahead and NP, do whatever you need to be able to card out here, and then we're going to end up on wave 3. Your Mordred or Artoria should have refunded themselves 20% due to their traits on their NP. Then you should be able to pop their charge skill. That's going to bring them to 50%. From there, use all of the Waver's skills on that Mordred or Artoria, bring them up to 100%, pop the plug suit attack buff, pop the Mordred or Artoria's Buster up, and go ham. And you should again be easily capable of clearing Inshin at a 100% rate, as long as all things are as they are on our chart. All right, next up here, guys, we have the Arthur comp. We wanted to show this one off because we've had a lot of people ask about Arthur and stuff in the past, but as you guys can see here, we can actually get away with an NP2 Nitocris, but as always, our recommendation is going to be to go for higher than that, given the fact that there is a lot of max health remaining here. Anytime you see all 3 enemies with max health remaining, you need to get very concerned. So this will come down to death procking in most cases, or just a high roll, hopefully, on one of them. But basically here, there's nothing out of the ordinary. The only difference is compared against the Mordred or Artoria comp that we're using double Waver here because we have to for charge. There is no wiggle room to get away with Merlin, unfortunately, and that's just due to the way Arthur works. Also, we're requiring NP3 of Arthur, and it's still pretty low in terms of damage because Arthur, unlike Mordred or Artoria, does not have an NP interlude. So just keep all of that in mind as we go through this one. Okay, so for the skill order, we're going to start out with a front line of Nitocris, Arthur, and the first Waver. You're going to go ahead and use Waver's attack up here, Nitocris's charge, and you're going to go ahead and NP with Nitocris. I highly recommend popping Nitocris's first skill as well for the death chance. Again, you can take that skill higher than 6 to help her out here, but hopefully you kill at least one of the enemies with death or the high roll of the NP, and then you only have to card your way through 2. So be careful. You might want to stagger cards here as well. With the first wave wiped out, you've got Arthur at 90% here in wave 2. You're going to go ahead and plug suit out the Nitocris for the second Waver, bring him in, go ahead and pop his attack buff. From there, he's got double attack buffs on him, so you can go ahead and NP. He's going to wipe out everything in that wave except the guard dog, and from there, you're going to have to card. He does have an intuition skill. You might want to pop it here. It's just up to you. I'm going to say it's probably better to try and card here because it's not guaranteed that you'll even have to card in wave 3. As that happens, we'll end up in wave 3 here. Arthur doesn't have any refund on the back of his MP, unfortunately. You're going to go ahead and pop Arthur's charge skill, Arthur's buster up here in wave 3. You can pop his intuition if he didn't already, but from there, you're going to go ahead and use all the waver's remaining skills that should account for 80% charge. Arthur's own charge skill should have accounted for 20, so he should be at full. From there, go ahead and use your plug suit attack buff, wipe out the wave, and you should be good. Inchin might live with as much as 20k health remaining, but otherwise, as long as you get good cards, you should be fine here. The bigger concern, like I said, is probably going to have to be on wave 2. Now we start getting really out here in terms of comps. So this is going to be the Altera comp. It's very similar to the Arthur comp, but there's a couple of big differences. One, we are requiring an NP3 Nito here, and as you guys can see, the max health remaining is getting pretty spicy now. This is getting into the range where, yeah, even one card might not be enough. So again, I'm going to recommend a much higher NP level Nito if you can get away with it, but NP3 is the base minimum that we can feel comfortable recommending here, and hence the warning. The other problem that we're going to have using Altera is this does require NP3 and a super scope. So that is a level 100 MLB Kscope, those of you that don't know. This is going to get a little bit on the difficult side for a lot of people. This is starting to get really whaley. I know we've had people in the past say like, oh man, some of these comps are just really whaley. Our strategy is never to have to require these, but unfortunately for some people, this may be the only thing they can pull off. So in an effort to try and give you guys some options, this is what we're doing. Even just like the Arthur comp, we're going to have quite a bit of max health remaining on the major enemies in the second and third wave, with Altera having a little bit of an advantage over Arthur in this comp in terms of overall health remaining in the final wave, and that has to do with her NP damage skill that she has, but otherwise guard dog will actually be even worse than Arthur had it. So this gets kind of spicy, and we'll go ahead and explain why right here in the skill order. Okay, so for skill order, your front wave is going to be that Nito, it's going to be Altera, and it's going to be your first waiver. Now do pay attention to the asterisks. You guys can get away with using a Scotty in place of either of the waivers, and the reason for that is because it doesn't matter what the buff order is here. Unfortunately, this is the side effect of using Altera and a super scope in this comp. It means that even for wave 2, you can't buff anything in order to have enough charge. Nito is having to piggyback all of this on her own, as is Altera. For the actual skill order here, like I said, we're going to start out with that front line. Nito is going to go ahead and charge herself to full, pop her first skill to help out with death chance, and NP. That's all you can do on wave 1. On wave 2, assuming you cleared that hurdle in 1 turn, if you didn't and you had to 2 turn it, that's fine. It's just become a 4 turn here because you didn't pop anything. On wave 2, you're going to go ahead and rotate that first Nito out with the plug suit, bring the waiver in. Now you've got double waiver here, but again, you can't do anything. It could be double Scotty. It doesn't make a difference here. Regardless, you're going to go ahead and pop Altera's attack up for herself and NP. You got to pay attention. The guard dog might have a lot of health remaining, so just be very careful. The good news is you pop that attack up in this turn, so you did get some stars to help you out. You progress on to wave 3 here. Now Altera has 0% charge. You're going to go ahead and pop all the waiver or Scotty charges on Altera, get her to 100%. If you're using Scotty, you're going to pop the defense downs right here. If you see quick cards in the lineup, you might also want to buff people appropriately with the Scotty skills as you determine you have to use them. But from there, you're going to go ahead and pop Altera's NP damage up on herself and pop the plug suit attack buff. Then go ahead and NP, and hopefully you get a good roll on Inchin. Now we're on the final comp for this node. Again, just to reiterate, we will be covering quick comps in another video. Just understand that we wanted to do all of those in one video, kind of all those Dantes and Lancelot comps, because we figured it'd be easier to just combine them into one. But pretty much we're leaving these videos to just the Buster and Arts comps. In this one, our final one is going to be a Salter one. It's going to perform very similar to Altera due to the fact that it requires a level 100 Kscope. That means that there's not going to be any real buffing on the second wave, so to speak. speak. But the good news is you can substitute a Scotty for one of the waivers, and we are only going to require NP2 of Nito, and Salter here as opposed to NP3 on the Altera comp. This one is very, very generous instead on the max remaining health, and you might struggle a little bit with wave 2's cards, but otherwise she does have a chance with a high roll to still clear the guard dog. So I'm really liking this comp a lot better than the Altera one. It's still going to be fairly whaley here with the super scope requirement, but NP2 Salter is probably a lot more manageable for people, especially with the 4-star ticket happening before this. For the skill order here, we're going to have that front line of Nito, Saber, Alter, and Waiver. Remember, you could substitute the other waiver for Scotty, but that's not going to factor in here. So we're going to start out by popping Nito charge skill to bring her to 100%. You're going to pop Nito first skill to give her that death chance, especially if you're using a less NP level of Nito here. But otherwise, she should be really good here, because what we're going to do is we're going to pop Salter's charisma skill here to give her an extra little bit of oomph, and we're going to pop Waiver's charisma. You might be wondering why we're using a charge skill here when Saber Alter's already at 100%, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Nito should kill the first wave easy here. As we wipe out the first wave, now we're ending up in wave 2. Go ahead and plug suit out that Nito bring in the other waiver or Scotty. As they come in, they bring stars with them. That's going to help you out with the guard dog. That'll have health remaining probably. What you want to do here is you want to pop Saber Alter's intuition skill here. We didn't recommend a value for it, but the higher you level it, the more stars you're going to get. So that can help you out with the carding here as well. So it should give you enough stars to get a good, decent chance at a crit in for any of those low roll NPs. Go ahead at this point, pop the plug suit attack buff and then NP. That's right, the plug suit attack buff here in wave 2. That's what we need to get the extra oomph here, and that should get it with at most it being 14.4k. Hopefully 2 cards, especially if their crits can handle this, especially with a buster card lead like Saber Alter's NP is. As you clear wave 2, you end up in wave 3. Go ahead and pop all the remaining charge skills on Saber Alter, who has refunded 10% on the back of her NP. You should have 90% charge remaining. You should be able to use that all on her to get her up to 100%. Also, don't forget, if you're using Scotty, use the defense down here. From there, go ahead and pop her mana burst skill, and at worst you're going to leave Inshin with about 7k remaining. So again, 80% of the time Salter is going to clean kill this at NP2 with a super scope, so that's why we're using the plug suit attack buff in wave 2 instead of wave 3. All right, thank you guys for watching today. Remember, you can join the community on Discord. I'll put the link in the description below. Just make sure you guys assign a role, otherwise the server will kick you. It's right in the channel at the very top of it. So again, I'll see you guys for the next one. It should be the Rider node next, so that's going to be a fun one. I'll see you guys for that.